Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So I think we can start on time. Actually, it's my first time to meet so many international students for many years since the COVID-19. So I'm quite excited to discuss with you about topics in education and learning. I'm Zhang Yu from the Institute of Education at Tsinghua University, and the topic today I would like to share with you is future education and learning. So before the discussion, I'd like to give you a very brief introduction about myself and why I chose this topic, okay? So my background is actually economics of education. I have done a lot of research in educational policy evaluation using econometrics, using numbers, statistics, econometrics, and so on. But after doing a lot of research in that field, I think that's far from enough to try to understand education and learning and try to solve the real world problem. So I turned to other directions, including theoretical analysis and interdisciplinary studies involving cognitive neuroscience and information technology and so on. So that's what I'm going to share with you about future education and learning. That's the name of this new direction we gave by ourselves. And that's also the name for a master program that I will talk about that a little bit if we have time at the end of this lecture. I know this is a course that we can discuss diverse topics that we are all very familiar with. I'm sure each of you are very familiar with education and learning because that's the activity that everyone will have some experience, right? Especially for students here, graduate students. But today I'm not talking about some very general questions because the general issues has been discussed widely. But I would like to share with you what we are doing as educational researchers, trying to make some unique effort to solve some of the issues that we think that's important. Okay, so we start this new direction of future education and learning, try to address this issue, to design education and learning for future. That's future education and learning for the future, and address current issues and challenges. So we cannot ignore the current issues and challenges to achieve a better future. We all know that we have a large education system in every country, every region for many years, for a long history, and we do have educational research, but there's still a lot of issues and challenges that we cannot solve, right? It's very hard. Why? Why? That's what we want to address, okay? So I think I have delivered a few questions for the lecture today, and I would like to have your thoughts regarding this question. First, what do you think is the biggest challenges in education today? And second, how do you think educational research could address these issues? Some cannot be addressed by research, but some can, right? And what's the paradigm for future education and learning? And what are the requirements for teachers, students, administrators, and the technological innovators, to achieve the new paradigm, the desired paradigm for the future education and learning? By the way, education and learning are different things. Do we understand that, right? So education is kind of organized behaviors by the society, right? We organize schools. We have a well-designed system to conduct education to our new generation, to the younger generation, right? But for learning, we can learn everywhere, anytime, not just in school, right? And it's for example, the lifelong learning is about learning, but it might not be regarded with education alone. So anyone want to share ideas about any of the questions? So if you want to design the future education and learning, either education or learning altogether, so what are the challenges that we must address? And what kind of effort we can make? And for each role in this system, what kind of requirement do we think that we need to meet? to achieve a better education and learning. Anyone want to have your thoughts share with others? Share with us. Yes, please.
I think that the future education will not only in school, but also in community, in company, and anywhere people get together and share their opinion and learn to each other.
Yes, yes. I think that's thank you. That's important and that's commonly accepted and by most people. That's important. Yes, and that's now what we are making effort to. But what kind of challenge do we have to achieve that? Language. Language. Okay, yeah. Language is an issue now, but with ChatGPT and other, AI, maybe we can solve that easier.
When doing the education, educate someone, you have the proper language with the audience.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so during that time, so maybe the language will be a challenge for them.
Yeah, it's a challenge, yes. Thank you. Any other challenge that we want to address? Yes, please.
Thank you, Professor. So I think that maybe the hard part is like we would like to do education to make some competencies. And then we didn't know with the rapid changes and everything, what will be the relevant competencies for next 20 years or next 30 years, and what we should like prepare our future generation to be able to do it. And
how?
Yeah.
You mean how?
How to predict that?
How, right?
How?
That's really
the
tough.
hard part.
Yeah, the important thing. We have to do that, right?
Yeah.
How? Yes, thank you. Yes, please.
Education is systematic, so we need a way to assess education, the quality or the quantity of education.
Yes.
So there should be a metric to assess
Metrics
to assess education, but it would be difficult to design a metric that assess education as a whole comprehensively, because once you have a metric, people will tend to optimize for one number and leading to education very biased to a subject or to shape.
Yes. Your background must be science and engineering, right?
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, about quality and assessment, right? That's hard, right? Especially when we want to assess quality. Quantity is easier, right? Yes. Any other opinions, points? Yes, please.
Yes, there is problem of funding.
Sorry?
Funding.
Funding.
Yeah.
Resources. Yeah, that's important. And in many regions, we don't have enough funding and teachers, right? Yeah, we cannot ignore that. That's important. Yes, thank you. Any other? Okay, I think several students has made very important points, and I think they are all very important. So these are the answers given by ChatGPT for the first 4 points, and the last one is proposed by myself. Let's say that I think these are common concerns that we discussed every day, and also in the literature. First is about access to quality education, right? Regarding education quality, but also about education equity, right? Like in China, it's urban-rural divide, right? Disparity, and the socioeconomic disparities exist everywhere, right? So that's about social components, social factors that education are facing. And also standardized testing, especially in East Asian countries, right? And the potential separation to, for example, creativity and other educational purpose that's proposed by many people. And also mental health and well-being. Young students, the primary school students, middle school students are facing, increasing number peers with mental health problem in China and in other countries, the same trend. So that's a big concern of many teachers and the principals. And also in the digital divide, right? We also talk about that, especially during the COVID-19, we use online education and so on. And also teachers' professional development. In many countries, teachers might not have enough support for the professional development, right? They want to improve their teaching skills, but might not have enough support. Although we might have an on-the-job training system, but not be very, effective, right? And also, in many countries, in public schools, teachers cannot be fired. So they always have very low motivation to make improvement, especially after, working for 10 or 20 years. So if we want to make, improvement in school education, make reforms, innovations, teachers don't want to change, right? That can be seen everywhere. So these are all the challenges that we are facing, but we still have a lot of other challenges. Let me ask, which one do you think is the most difficult to change? They are all important challenges. We need to address them all, right? But which one do you think is the most difficult and why? And which are more manageable, more, we might have some interventions. We might have some strategy to change that easier or faster. So which are the slowest factors that we can change?
Teacher.
Which one?
Teacher. The teacher part.
Teacher.
Teacher.
The last one? Oh, yeah, of course. That one is so hard to change. The others? The first one, right? The first one, yeah, of course. We cannot choose where we were born, right? Which family we were born, right? So, as an economist, I've been, working with the data regarding the first issue for many years. When I was studying in Columbia University, I still remember that in the educational finance course, a very senior, well-established professor, he has, done research in education finance for decades, and he served as a consultant for the government for many years. But he was very angry with the local government, regarding educational finance allocation, because that financial strategy or financial plan is increasing education inequality and so on, right? So you can see that it takes decades. It takes decades for the social factors to change. It changes slowly, right? And sometimes it's difficult. And also for the last one, teachers' issue, right? As you can imagine, how many of you have experience teaching in middle school or primary school? Or you have school observations? 1, 2, 3? Okay, a few, thank you. So if you have very deep dive into the schools, you will see that issue almost everywhere, except for some very, very, top or innovative schools. So these are the challenges that we're facing. But in the middle, these ones are easier to change. And my point is that with our research, I will show later, with our research, for example, the AI system and other, research conclusions from the literature, we want to create a system, the system does not mean technology system, but the entire system that can support student development regardless of the family background and the teacher ability. So that's a dream, or that's a plan for the future, right? Because they are so difficult to change. So can we use other approach to change that and to guarantee a quality education to everyone? That's what we are trying to make effort. So we have 2 dimensions to allocate our research. We have different kind of research. The first dimension is that we highly value the wisdom in practice, in educational practice, in the in the schools. So as a researcher, we try to choose questions that are important to the local practice. So that's the first principle when we want to choose or construct a new project. And on the other side, we want our research to benefit educational practice. So this is different from some disciplines that they don't need to worry about the practice. For education, we must have a strong sense of problem-oriented principle that we choose questions, we choose research projects that can address the practical issues. So that's one dimension. The other is that, as you can notice, that in education research, we have both humanity and society issues and science and technology, right? We have educational philosophy, educational economics, educational psychology, educational sociology, and educational technology, right? So many sub-disciplines that are trying to work together to solve the problem in education, but it's still very hard. So we have these two dimensions, and I will show you how our research locates in these two dimensions. And in our team, in our research team, we do have a strong sense to integrate humanity and society issues with science and technology. So first we provide directions, and then we have applications from technology. Education and learning is the most complex system, right? So compared with some hard science or engineering. So our engineering is already trying to face very complex systems, but human education and human learning are even more complex for us to understand, right? So even now, no one can say that we know the mechanism of learning. It's still a black box, although we do education and learning every day. So we're trying to figure out what are the effective theories. We have so many theories, right? After a long history of research from the ancient time to now. And how to design the new education and learning system, how to do that, right? And how to improve teaching, right? And how to evaluate assessment issue, how to evaluate teaching and learning, right? It's still very hard for us to evaluate teaching and learning. If you talk to the school principal, they will tell you that they cannot evaluate the teachers very easily. That's why we don't have some kind of incentive strategies in teachers' salary plan. It's year-based because it's very difficult for you to judge one teacher is teaching better than the other one. It's too complex, right? Because each teacher faces different students, and it's really complex. And how do we evaluate that? And also about learning. And how do we empower our teachers to change or to support them to change, right? Sometimes they don't want to change. Sometimes they don't have support to change. And our system, actually don't provide enough support for teachers to make our desired changes in most cases. This is not the whole picture of our work, but an interesting discussion can start from here. So suppose that we create a system. It must be AI system nowadays, right? Because it can be interactive and it can be more easier to communicate and integrate all the information. So if you have an AI system embedded with education and learning theories and advanced knowledge graph and big data, educational big data, right? They have all the knowledge of human beings regarding education and learning, and can this system help us to solve the problem that we have discussed? So first, to teachers, Suppose this system, right, could help teachers to prepare for the class, to design the course, to design the teaching strategies by providing, teaching resources and toolbox, desired, examples, options for teachers to choose to combine, right? And all these toolbox and the modules is based on different learning series, right? And with a lot of materials supported. I think that can systematically change many teachers' teaching strategy, because most of the teachers are using very traditional strategy, and they don't want to, it takes time. It takes time for them to update a lot of materials, resources, right? So if the AI system can do that, especially with very structured design of each lecture, each class, that will systematically improve the teaching quality for most teachers, not for every teachers. For the top teachers, for the excellent teachers, they don't need that. They can do that themselves, right? But for teachers with low support, without enough training, right, and with low motivation to change, such kind of support can, provide a lot of convenient support to them. And to students. So the biggest advantage for AI system is to provide individualized teaching to everyone, individualized support based on technique we call learning analytics, right? So we analyze each student's situation based on the data they provided, right? We make assessment for each student, and the AI system can provide different suggestions to different students individually, right? So that's amazing, because if we can do that well, now the AI system can already do that. I don't know how many of you have tried such kind of AI system, but most of them for basic education. Now many AI system can do that, maybe not very well, but they can do that. But I believe that with a fast, iteration of the technology, it can be optimized in a very fast speed, and students can get very individualized support. So regardless of their family background or the previous knowledge in that field, the learning ability, they can have the best suggestions and support from the AI system that have, integrated all the wisdom of the teachers and our research, right? So that's the optimal situation, and we are working hard on that. So in this way, an AI system with all the wisdom of educational research can support teachers and students very well regarding knowledge learning. But that's already very important. Also about some basic abilities, right? So that's the logic. I'm showing the logic. Okay, many researchers are working hard on that. So that's the desired effect. First, such system can improve teaching quality in this way, and reduce teachers' working load. That's important for teachers. The teachers in the high school are very, very busy. And if we can reduce the working load for 1 hour every day, they can have that 1 hour to do research, to change the teaching, right? And to spend more time with the students. So that's very important. And we can improve student learning quality through this way, because each teacher has very limited time, and he or she cannot take care of each student very well. So that's why we want to rely on AI, right? So that's a desired model, and in this way we can save teachers time, and they can play more role in student comprehensive development in Chinese contact and maybe in other contact, and they can pay more attention to students' mental health problem, virtue cultivation, and value education, etc. So by making such kind of the point I want to say is that we do face a lot of issues, challenges in education and learning, right? And they are all very important. And they all deserve our efforts, decades of efforts to solve. But if the social issues, like the education disparity issues, right, the teacher professional development issues, if these issues are very difficult or very slow to change, if technology is changing faster than that, so we will have another approach relying on technology. That's why technology today has a strong legitimacy in contemporary society. So it's kind of ironic because the legitimacy of technology is because we human beings change slowly. We don't want to change ourselves or the society in the desired way, right? So because I say that because many researchers would try to make some critiques on the attention that we have made to technology, right? But the point is that can we change our society, our teachers, ourselves faster than technology? So that's the point. That's some thoughts. Okay, so feel free to make comments or questions anytime, okay? Because you might not agree with me, that's warmly welcomed, and sometimes I may not make myself very clear, okay? So that's one thought from our team. And the other thought is about the multidisciplinary issue. Educational research is multidisciplinary, or we call it interdisciplinary. We can say that I just mentioned we have so many subfields in educational research, and all these fields are so different, right? Anyone from social science? Anyone from social science? Yes. Which background are you from? Anthropology, right? Anthropology is very qualitative oriented. Anyone from like economics or political science? No? Okay, so we do have some very quantitative oriented background, right? So we have educational philosophy, psychology, sociology, anthropology, economics, and the curriculum and teaching, right? So many different subjects to solve education problems, but each subject, we don't have enough communication between subjects. And nowadays we have some new fields emerging to try to also solve educational problems, like cognitive science, right? Learning sciences, neuroscience, cognitive linguistics, AI, and so on, right? So many subjects, so many disciplines. So what we want to address is that facing so many subjects that try to solve educational problems, we must be problem-oriented instead of subject-oriented, right? Subject-oriented means that if this question does not belong to the topics that our subject care about, we don't care. So that's about subject-oriented, but we would say that in educational research, we need to be problem-oriented. What's the problem in education and learning? And what kind of knowledge, methodology, and theories that can solve that problem? Then we will use that, right? Instead of a single discipline, for example, single sociology, single psychology, or philosophy, so on. And researchers should cross the boundaries of different disciplines and communicate with each other, cooperate with each other to solve the complex issues. So we try to solve two questions in our research. The first is, where should we go for the future education and learning? The direction, okay? And the second is, how do we reach the destiny? How, right? And I think for the first question, philosophy and humanity and related subjects might play more role in that word, and science, technology, and policy may work more to solve the second question. And these are all the subjects they are working with to achieve that. So our research is have dual drives, theoretical drive and method innovation drives. And it's interdisciplinary. I have shown that feature before. And we do theoretical innovation. For example, we want to innovate new learning theories, and we want to see how our tribal Chinese traditional culture can play a role in educational theory. And we also do a lot of empirical studies for for theoretical innovation. Because if we only have a theory, propose a theory, we don't have empirical evidence, the theory cannot be testified, right? And we also do application innovations that we want to put into practice, right? To apply all the research into the field. So that's what we are doing. Let me give you two examples about our research. One is theoretical, and the other is empirical. So the first one is a dissertation by Dr. Qin and supervised by me. So this is a research regarding humanity and society side issues, okay? And it's a research. But the question do come from practice. And we want our research, to have some insights to practice. So that's the location of this research. The issue is that, so we can observe a lot of concerns in contemporary education, either in basic education or in higher education. We can observe that the modernity dilemma is also in education in different ways. We can observe all these phenomena in our students. For example, the weakness in moral education and value education, and that's related to the nihilism of value, right? The excessive utilitarian tendencies can be reflected in education as test-oriented, right? First priority of test scores, and the student learning useful knowledge for tests, right? And students nowadays are more, have the trend of extensive entertainment and neglect of educational purpose. Even in education, in educators, they have such kind of view. So there's a crisis for self-identity among our students, and we do have a concern as researchers, and we also talked with educators, the teachers, that how do we face this issue, and how do we solve that, and what kind of value should we have, and what kind of wisdom should we hold to face these issues. By the way, do you agree with that? Do you have any such kind of observations regarding these issues? Or you think it's not a problem at all? Okay, let me continue. Okay, at least in China, we talk about a lot. But I would be happy to know any discussion or insights from other cultures. So the research question that Dr. Qin asked is, can the Confucian philosophy of joy of learning cope with the self-identity crisis in education? Why do we ask such kind of question? Because nowadays our young people talk about entertainment, happiness, joy, right? And how do we understand joy, especially during learning, right? We can see that there are research about using games to help students to learn. They try to make students easier as entertainment, right? And so on. So a lot of discussions. And then we come back to the basic concept. So what's the meaning of joy, right? We think that human beings pursue joy. That's no problem, but different people have different understanding about joy. And we want to know as educators and students, what's the meaning of joy. And the Confucian series has a lot of discussion on that. So what we want to do is that first we want to have a extensive review of the Confucian thoughts on joy of learning, or joy of learning, joyful learning. Different ways to express that thought. And so we want to have some dialogue between Confucian thoughts and Western philosophy thoughts regarding the concerns about self-identity. And in this step, we choose Charles Taylor's authentic self-identity thoughts as a series that we want to, have some discussion with. And in this way, we connect the ancient theory of Confucius with the modern theories that we are discussing in philosophy and education. And then from the perspective of practice, because education is practice in nature, right? So we constructed a practical framework for joyful learning. So how can we achieve the joy of learning? What's the path? How to do that, right? Because you will see that the joy of learning is actually is a very high level of concept. It's not some basic thoughts on that. So how to achieve that? And we also did some empirical descriptions of contemporary authentic self-identity. So what's the situation now? What's the situation of the college students, right, and the high school students, by making a scale and doing a survey. Okay, so that's the research done by Dr. Qin's dissertation, and I will discuss the first two sessions a little bit to show you. So what kind of effort we're making? This is just one example. So the first three steps about theoretical study, and the fourth one is empirical study. Okay, so in Chinese 乐学, I'm sure you learn some Chinese, right? I encourage you to learn Asian Chinese because Asian Chinese is really beautiful and concise, and Asian Chinese can express the wisdom better than modern Chinese, the 普通话, right? So I encourage you to learn some, and you can just recite that. And if you can, read a few words to your Chinese friends, they will say, "Wow, you know more than me." Okay. So let's discuss about the word 乐学. So joy of learning in Chinese is 乐学. 乐学. So what's the origin of joyful learning? Joyful learning or joy of learning. I use that in either way, okay? So it originates from a very ancient article called The Record of Learning in Chinese, 学记. Anyone who have read 学记? Well, you must read that. You must read that. It's very short. Just one article, very short. You can search it online, okay? So it originates from that. 不兴其义，不能乐学. Okay. I don't know how to translate that in English. The translation, I think that might be fun. So if he do not acquire the various accomplishments, he cannot take delight in learning. So in this way, we can say that 义 in Chinese, 义 here is not art. In nowadays we call 义 means art, right? But in Asian, at least in 学记, 义 means different skills, different accomplishments. So you have to, acquire a lot of different skills. You can start to, take delight in learning. So you can see that learning seems to be very high. It's higher than the various accomplishments, because that's the basics, right? After achieving that, you may take delight in learning. And we can also say that in 论语, right? And the lex. And you must have heard about that, right? Dong? You didn't heard about that? Well, please, you are learning in China, and at least you should have heard about 论语 by Confucius. He said, 学而时习之，不亦说乎? Every Chinese student, Chinese pupil know that sentence, know that. So the meaning is that isn't it pleasant to learn with a constant perseverance and application, right? It's talk about the joy of learning is about making constant perseverance and application. You see that? And another word very famous. So it's 知之者不如好之者，好之者不如乐之者。It's very profound philosophy, right? In English, so they who know the truth are not equal to those who love it. So know the truth and love the truth are different. And those who love it are not equal to those who delight in it. So those who love the truth and those who delight in truth are different. So know the truth, love the truth, and delight in truth. And delight in truth means 乐学, means joy of learning. Very high, not just know the truth, right? Nowadays, if we know the truth, that's enough, right? But to Confucius, delight in it is the highest level of learning. And later scholars explain that in the ways, right? They say that those who know the truth are aware of Dao. Dao means the truth, okay? And those who love it, desire it, but not yet attained it. And those who enjoy it have attained Dao and delight in it. So Dao is the highest wisdom or virtue in Confucian philosophy. And only those who attend Dao can really enjoy the learning. Can really enjoy the learning. So different from our nowadays knowledge, right? And other explanations. And they give some examples. So those who love it are like the visitor in someone else's garden. And those who delight in it are considered it as their own. So it's whether you attend the very high level accomplishment of Dao, it's different, okay? So that's our origin of 乐学. And let me talk about the 学 in the ancient philosophy, okay? Learning. So learning is not about learning knowledge, but more about enlightenment. So in 说文解字, early Chinese dictionary, learning is enlightenment. It's enlightening those in ignorance, and at least they should learn the 6 arts or 6 accomplishments, 6艺, right? And there's a difference between knowledge of virtue and knowledge of observations. And obviously, our ancient Chinese philosophies are pursuing knowledge of virtue, understanding and awareness of morality, the Dao, okay, instead of merely sensory experiences. So there's also sayings that we learn how to cultivate the people, how to make them happy, and how to plan and work for the people. So 学如何抚慰苍生，造就苍生，学为苍生谋. So the learning is for the people. So you see that that's a Chinese value, Chinese culture. So after all this literature review, and we give our definition of learning, is cultivating students with ultimate goal of lifelong education, lifelong learning. And this requires knowledge and skills, but also cultivating moral ethics and virtues, both in schools, society, and the families. So that's about the scope or the meaning of learning and about joy, okay? So from 周易, from 易经, 易经 is another very famous philosophy classic in China. We see that joy, so according to all this, we can see that joy is about what? Joy is about entertainment of Dao, okay? So that's a meaning. And of course, we have different examples, like the harmony in social order, right? And the ordination of heaven, right? Of the world, universe. And 孔颜之乐 is also very famous, right? The joy that Yan Hui has experienced after attaining Dao. But we'll finish very soon. So that's about joy. You can see that it's very different from the what we understand nowadays. So joy as the emotions that arises after experiencing, understanding, accompany the pursuit of Dao and achieving benevolence. So in Chinese, 乐道人美 are very consistent, and so joy is unified with the realm of benevolence and with the realm of aesthetics. And only when you attend Dao can you have the highest level of joy. And so we can see that so we construct the concept of inner joy and external joy. Okay, so the inner joy today means the resisting material temptations and maintaining inner peace and pleasure. The joy of seeking benevolence, Dao, and sincerity. So that's the inner joy. And the joy of inner virtue and wisdom achieved through learning and cultivation. And about external joy, the external joy is more frequently discussed among students, right? It's a sensory pleasure, emphasis on material enjoyment, and external stimuli. Okay, so the joy of learning is really about inner joy in Confucian's philosophy, and that is what we think that will help the young generation to have authentic self-identity. That's one way solution. So we construct the sense of joy of learning philosophy by quoting Confucius' famous points on that. So that's actually four parts. One is aiming at Dao, and second, based on the virtue, relying on the benevolence, and wondering in the various accomplishments. I don't want to read that. It's very difficult to interpret that in English. So I do encourage you to learn Chinese. But I think later we might have some publications in English in that field. So in Chinese philosophy you have Ti and the Yong, right? The inherent nature and the function, right? So this joy of learning philosophy actually has both inherent nature and the function part. And so let's go back to Taylor's authentic self. So Charles Taylor discussed his points on achieving authentic self in order to address the self-identity issue, right? And he raised three points. One is the pursuit of full meaning. And second is the ethical relations with others, right? And third is the maintenance of self-subjectivity. These are very important. If we can address these issues in an ideal way, we will solve the problem of self-identity, right? And in education, of course, we also care about how to do that in practice. So how do Confucian joy of learning philosophy address all these issues, try to solve that, cope with that aspects? And in Dr. Qin's dissertation, she made theoretical argument to show that how each aspect of the joy of learning philosophy can, cope with or provide solutions, suggestions to address all these issues. So because of time limitation, I'm not going to interpret that in detail, but that's our learning, how we do research to talk about such kind of philosophical issues in education. That's big problems, that's important, but that's very hard to address, and we turn to theoretical solutions in this is an example. Okay, the second example, very empirical. We are changing from philosophy, ancient times, to the modern science, okay, and technology. So next, I will show you a few empirical studies that we try to solve the problem of how people learn. How can we understand the learning mechanism using modern technology, modern scientific approach? Okay, so we still have proposed our research question in practice in the field, how people learn, and how do we, describe that? And the next step would be how can we interpret or support students, right? But the research is in empirical part. So we basically integrate cognitive neuroscience into education. And what is cognitive neuroscience? Anyone want to give us an answer? So cognitive neuroscience is also an interdisciplinary field of neuroscience and cognitive science, right? It tries to, understand the neural process of people's cognitive activities. That's important for us to understand how humans think and how humans learn. But the problem is that most cognitive neuroscience research are done in a lab, in laboratory, with very heavy equipment. Okay, and such kind of research cannot be done in education, in the educational field. So the issue is about a paradigm. In hard science, for example, in cognitive neuroscience, it is a lab-based paradigm, laboratory, right? So, but in education, if you do educational research, we always go to the field, right? It's school-based. We need a natural contact because human behaviors are different in the lab and than that in the real world. So let's see the advantage and disadvantage of lab-based paradigm. Okay, I think many of you are in science and technology. It is a controlled experiment. We have controlled all the factors, noisy factors, so that we want to have some the causal effect, right? And it is an isolated environment, right? Isolated. Even for the experiments with human beings, is isolated environment in a small office, right? Small room, and the subjects are usually required to do very simplified task, right? Although it might be related to learning, but it is simplified compared to the task in real world. So that we want to get some causal effect, and we want to get a theory about the mechanism, like the mechanism of learning, right? And so on. So let me ask, I think most of you are very familiar with lab-based paradigm. Do we always get causal effect or the conclusions regarding mechanism using lab-based paradigm? No? I heard about that? Of course, no, right? In many cases, even we are doing a well-controlled experiment, we cannot get that, right? So that's a limitation. And in research, in experiments regarding human beings, whether the stimuli is effective or not is also a problem, right? We cannot know whether we can, the subjects can have the desired status that we want. So that's the limitations. And now let's see the school-based paradigm. It's natural, right? It's open environment, like this classroom, it's open, right? Since it's open, it's natural, it's like a forest, right? So we have multiple and unknown factors in the field. And as a researcher, especially you want to do a matrix, right? Using all these quantitative methodologies, it's very difficult for us to control for the unknown factors. So in many cases, we can only conclude the correlation. We can get the conclusion, but we cannot get a causal effect, right? And in many cases, during a education activity or learning activity, it's difficult to observe or to code. That's also the limitation. But the advantage is that it has very high ecological validity. Anthropology will do research in the field. It won't do research in a small office, right? So that's the ecological validity. So given all these concerns, our team tried to bridge the lab-based paradigm and the school-based paradigm when we are doing cognitive neuroscience in education. So how do we bridge the gap between the two paradigms? First, we have different designs. We can conduct semi-controlled experiments. And second, we do iterations. We do a school-based paradigm. We observe some phenomenon, and then we construct new research questions, and we do a lab-based paradigm. And then we'll come back to the field, right? In that way, we try to solve the problems in each site. And we do have new ways to collect data. Instead of just distributing surveys, we have wearable devices. I think some of you are wearing that, right? And we have large-scale data processing technology to do that, to solve that. And so this is heavy equipment that you might say in hospital and in some lab. And these are the wearable band and watch that our students can wear in a very convenient way in a real classroom. So data collection, we involve all kinds of data collection: qualitative, quantitative, coding, machine learning. So there's no boundary about the methodology. And in that way, we try to solve all the gaps. So let me share some results that I think that might be interesting. The first is about interbrain coupling and the real-world classroom learning or the learning process. So, it's really difficult for the students to report, right, the learning process. And it's also very difficult for teachers and researchers to observe the inner thoughts of the students. It's really, we cannot read your mind, right? But with some new technology, for example, EEG, okay, that's one kind of a signal that we can document through the equipment that reflects the brain activities. We will say that whether some features can reflect the learning quality or the learning process, okay? So one concept that we all care about in classroom learning is attention, right? The teachers want the student to make attention so that they can learn. But let me ask, so pay attention, okay, so how can we make a judgment of if a student is paying attention to the content the teacher is discussing, or he or she is paying attention to something else? So they're all paying attention, right? So that's an issue. So in this article, we try to solve that by taking advantage of the class. So class teaching is always based on the unit of a whole class, not an individual pupil, not an individual student, right? So a group of students are learning together with one teacher. So in that way, we propose that the group's average brain activity may serve as the benchmark of the optimal learning process of that class, right? That makes sense. So in that way, we don't need to code the complex classroom activities. We just need to calculate the class average as a benchmark, and then we compare each individual's brain activity with the class average brain activity and see if they're consistent, right? Because the whole class is moving with the teacher's teaching design, and one individual is despairing from that, that might be different activities in that brain, right? So that's the logic. Now let's see the result. So this, let me explain. We collect data in a high school, in a normal high school, and in both Chinese and math class for one semester. In this study, for one semester. So, and for each month, we collect 1 week Okay, for each week is 5 days. So 5 classes every month and 3 months. Okay, so the red figures about Chinese, we call this soft subject. Okay, soft subject. And for the blue ones, it's about math class. It's a hard subject. Okay, and this figure 3 reports the correlation between the Citibank student, correlation coupling between each student with the top students or the class average. So by top students, we defined them as based according to the test scores. Okay, so the top 2, top 3, top 5, etc. until the whole class. Okay, the whole class means class average, and we calculate the top students in that way. So we can see that for Citibank EEG data, there's no significant correlation in Chinese classes between each student and the top student and the final test score. So you can see that this is the final test score, and this is the student to top students coupling. And for this figure, is each student to the class average coupling, and there's no significant correlation for either one. But for math, in math class, you can see that the student class coupling, meaning the consistency between each student and the class average brain activity, right, can significantly predict the final test score. And the coefficient is quite large, is 33%. So that's the one observation, right? And the other one is that we observe in alpha band, another frequency band, alpha band. We can see that there is no significant correlation anymore in math class, but we do observe a very significant correlation in Chinese class between the student top coupling, meaning the consistency of brain activities between each student and the top student in a class, okay, and test scores. That's very significant, okay, 0.4. So very interesting observations that we can observe, which shows that, so you can see that first, the observation is that the optimal learning or successful learning in math and Chinese are very different, right? They show different models. Chinese is one kind of soft, it's about language, right? Language and arts. So Chinese is about soft subjects, and the math is kind of hard subjects. And you can see they're very different. So in this figure, in figure 3, we see the significant correlation in theta band. Frontal theta band is found to be correlated with working memory, calculation-related task, and inhibition, sustained attention, and so on. So that is strongly needed in math learning, right? And alpha band, if you have some knowledge in that, alpha band is correlated with the inhibition of stimuli-driven attention, and is also related with imagination. And that might be more important in Chinese learning, right? And that's also other explanations we have discussion. So this is a hard science we have done to try to explore the learning mechanism in real world classroom, not in the lab. So we also use other kind of neurophysiological data. This one, in this study, we use EDA data. EDA is electrodermal activities that we collected using the wristband. And EDA level can reflect the emotional arousal. So if you are very exciting, okay, or highly anxiety, the EDA data will be high. But it's very peaceful, but also sleepy, that will be very low. Okay, so that's EDA data. And we also found a very similar phenomenon in math class that students consistency, intercept correlation, okay, student consistency with the top students' EDA data can predict the final test score. And the coefficient, if you know, that coefficient is really large. It's 0.4, okay? 0.4 and even 0.5. That's very large in social science. So we can say that neurophysiological data might have the very strong potential in real classroom to represent the learning process, cognitive and emotional process during learning, and help us to understand the mechanism. Okay, we also do qualitative analysis by doing the video code of each class and observe the class events and try to analyze the ISA data with the class events, and it's highly consistent. So both quantitative and qualitative analysis show the same results. Okay, so this is about individual features. The previous slide is about the group features, right? Each person's EDA data with the top students' EDA data. This one for individuals' own features. They also have a very nice prediction about the daily status, but it cannot predict the final score. That's different. So the group features are very important in real classroom. That's what we found. And we also have some studies to try to represent the anxiety during tests, and we found some interesting findings. But if you're interested, you can read our article. I don't want to introduce that in more detail because maybe some of you are not so familiar with the background. Okay. So that's a few examples that we have done, and now let me introduce our master program. So all this research are done by our faculty members and master and the graduate students in this program. We call it Future Education Learning. The same name of the lecture today. It's interdisciplinary. And we try to, address the issues that we have discussed at the beginning of the lecture, and we also want to cultivate high-level interdisciplinary talents. And we do have three goals, three objectives. It depends on the interest, the development of each student. So first, we want to cultivate the high-level interdisciplinary research talents in learning and cognitive science. And we want to cultivate future policymakers in educational technology. And third, we want to cultivate R&D and entrepreneurs talents in the education technology industry. Okay, and so students here in this program are supported by the interdisciplinary and the multi-field knowledge structures. We have flexible and independent curriculum design. The students are guided by, mentor groups and the research team from different disciplinaries, from, for example, education, psychology, computer and science, medical engineering, biomedical engineering, and so on. And it's an integration of science and education, and with equal emphasis on both theories and practice. These are some module courses that we have, for example, in education, in psychology, in computer technology, and in neuroscience, and so on, in computer. And this is our team, the faculty team of this project. So from different departments, you can see that, and from some interdisciplinary labs, and with both senior faculties and younger faculties in this team. And this is some educational experience that our students shared with us after graduating from that program. And I really love that because it said that it shared very good words about us, right? about the enriching her. It said that, let me see, it's very small for you to read. So this program is not just about accumulating knowledge and growing academically. It's also about enriching my spirit and enlightening my soul. And here she can meet, interesting professors, kind-hearted and friendly peers, warm and desired mentors. And she has the plan to become an excellent research scholar, and delving deep into the mysteries of education and learning. She has a dream of not just transfer knowledge, but also the ignition of dreams and nurturing the future hopes. So that's what we want to say in our students. Just let you know, that's what we have done in research and in education, talent cultivating to move forward for the future of education. Future education. Okay, so that's what I want to share. We still have some time if you have any comments, questions. It's really academic oriented, right? Not so generally discuss topics.
Thank you very much. My question is where we can observe the results or the implementation of this theory, for example, maybe in some courses for some schools in Tsinghua, maybe for School of Public Management and Administration, and maybe what methods, what features, what points do you use from your research prepare for this lecture?
Okay, that's a very good question. We are very cautious to make such kind of policy suggestions because, in empirical studies, we need to accumulate a lot of consistent results until we can feel very confident to make clear suggestions. Because if we switch to another school, right, another group of students, we may observe different phenomena, right? Because education is so complex, so we are very cautious about that. But we are doing that to see that the new data, new methodology, new technology can have the potential to help us understand deeper about student learning and teaching. So we are moving forward, and we will wait maybe for more knowledge, more evidence to make such kind of policy evaluations. Yeah, at least I think to go back to the issue that I think a student over there mentioned is about the quality and assessment. It's so difficult for us to assess learning, right? And we don't know students' feelings, students' learning process. Even the teachers, experienced teachers, cannot say that they understand each one's precise process. So this new technology or data may help them to understand that. So we'll try to make progress on that. Thank you. Yes? Because someone is online.
Yeah. Sorry, I would like to ask, several years ago, I have seen the one of the news report from SCMP, I think, and then they actually applied some wearable devices like the EEG things in the forehead of the students, and then each time, constantly, the EEG will record, and then through some apps and the internet, they will send the data to the teacher and then also to the parents, and then in those circumstances, maybe some technology will be. I also agree that will be reduce the number of workload of the teachers and then make personalized learning and also more effective learning, but. If aside of the research, but real implementation, do you see where's the boundaries between the things that still appropriate, and then maybe is constantly measuring the attention of the student is appropriate in the education settings? That the first one. And second one, for example, back in Indonesia, we have a program we use the digital system. And then based on the progress of the student in the system, we can recognize very systematically where the student is have difficulties and things, and then the system will recommend some of the learning materials and things to the student. But like, for example, we would like to run this trial for 150,000 people. We give the quota and everything, but like only 1,000 of people using it. So like, that's a very hard part is like in the teacher, like they are most of them is conservative and then very low motivation and so on and so on. So like how we convince more teachers and more educational settings to adopt this kind of technologies. Thank you, Professor.
Very important questions. I think that's about research and application. So in research, we might have with the consent of the students and the parents, we can collect data doing research. But for applications, another thing, right? If you want to do applications, there's a lot of issues regarding the privacy and so on. But research also should obey that. So I don't think the technology or the scientific research are ready, to make applications that you described. I think it's far from that. So we are still doing research to try to, understand the mechanism behind, many phenomena. But when some companies fast, implement that into real world, I don't know. That's one thing, and I'm sure there are a lot of misuse of neuroscience nowadays in the society, either in among parents or the companies. So we should be cautious on that. And for me, I think if in the future, if the result is really robust, really solid, it will be more like for personal diagnosis. For personal, if I want to know my status, I want to know how to improve myself, I might wear some devices for one class or two, and that's it, right? I think that like we wear the bands to count our running and so on, right? So I think that for personal use, not for large scale measurement. Yeah. Okay. So if you don't have more questions, I think we can finish the discussion. Okay? Okay, thank you.